Shalom YouTube. You are listening to The Financially Savvy Chick. I am Tamar. Today's video, I'm going to talk about America's insolvency. America is in a state of financial distress because we're unable to pay our bills, we're overspending, expenses are adding up too much because too much money is going out and not enough is coming in. So we are officially a state of financial distress. In October, the U.S. national debt reached $31 trillion, and the government projected to wade another $1 trillion into the red in the 2023 fiscal year. The long-term picture is even gloomier, with the deficit expected to double to $2 trillion by 2030. Indeed, the longer the horizon, the worse things get. At 98% of gross domestic product, GDP, the current national debt is the highest it's been since World War II. And on its current course, the debt will soar to 185% of the country's entire economic output by 2052. I don't even know that there will be an economy by that time. And I mean, you really be kidding yourself to sit there and think so. What's particularly troubling is that the government's 2022 $1.3 trillion deficit came at a time of near record tax intake. At 19.8% of the GDP, Uncle Sam's 2022 tax haul was close to the all-time high of 20.5% set in 1944. Washington doesn't have a revenue problem. It has a spending problem, okay? You know, they've put us in this situation. They really have. And it's not just. It's unfortunately going to have a major impact negatively on everyone. What few people realize is the extent to which the U.S. government disastrous trajectory is on autopilot, thanks to the fact that ever longer proportion of federal spending happens without congressional action. To my understanding, why it's important to first understand that there are two main categories of government spending: discretionary spending, right, which requires a vote by Congress as part of the annual appropriations process. And two, you have mandatory spending. Now, this is dedicated by previously enacted laws and thus happens without an annual vote in Congress. For example, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. This is a big majority of mandatory spending. So that's a given that they're going to spend there. Here's where things are taking an ominous turn. In 1965, mandatory spending accounted for 34% of all federal spending. Today, that share has more than doubled, with mandatory spending representing 71% of federal outlays. With overall spending higher too, mandatory spending is a much larger slice of a larger pie. We simply need to cut back, okay? The government needs to cut back on their spending, and sadly, they're not. As much as it's right to spotlight wasteful discretionary spending, like a $2.4 million budget for the National Science Foundation grant to promote dinosaur enthusiasm, or spend $11.3 million to tell Vietnamese people to stop burning trash, that's wasteful, okay? The truth is that the annual budget process offers federal legislation a shrinking opportunity to make meaningful fiscal course corrections. While mandatory spending can be adjusted by passing new laws, which we have too many, there's a big problem with that. Meaningfully changing the trajectory of mandatory spending requires meaningful adjustments to Social Security and Medicare. Again, we always talk about how they keep kicking the can down the road because they don't want to face reality. I don't even think they live in reality. The mere idea arouses indignation among those who've been paying taxes into these programs for all their working lives. It's understandable, since the government fosters the myth that Americans have Social Security and Medicare accounts. Now check this out. I started working, I got my first job officially when I was 14 years old in the state of Delaware, babysitting for 2 hours. It was on a Wednesday when they held parenting classes, because some parents will come there and take parenting classes, when it was required by court. I got paid $10 an hour, right? So fast forward, I'm 39 years old, and here we have the government. Now, when I get ready to retire, if there's even an option available, the government is only going to pay me up to the last 5 years from when I retired. Did you know that? So you can work from the age of 13, you can work from the age of 15 all the way up to 70 years old, but you're only going to get paid for the last 5 years. Where's the rest of that money go? I don't think that's right. While former Democratic Speaker Tip O'Neill rightly calls Social Security a third rail of American politics, some politicians have recently dared to propose touching both it and Medicare. I know I digressed there a little bit earlier. It just infuriated me thinking about how I'm working 30, 40 years, and then you're not going to even give me Social Security for those 40 years that I worked. I'm only entitled to the last 5 years that I worked. And see, a lot of people don't know this, but if you did, you'd be out there trying to change things. The Republican Study Committee, a group of House reps, in June floated a budget that suggested gradually raising Medicare's eligibility to age 67 and Social Security to 70. If you notice, a lot of these politicians, when they run for office, they tell you, no, we're not going to raise the retirement age, and they lie. It was 65. Then it was changed to 67. Now it's going to be 70. You got to be 70 years old now to retire for Social Security. Y'all just go ahead and say you got to be 100 years old. Just be honest. You want somebody to work till they die. We're paying you to do a job. You're not doing your job. All of y'all need to be fired. Okay? Withholding payments from those who retire early and earn more than a certain amount, reducing Social Security payroll taxes, and redirecting them to private alternatives. That I do not agree with. Phasing in means testing for Medicare. I would not want my Social Security redirected to a private company. That's already an issue we have with the current so-called leaders. Senator Ron Johnson, a Republican for Wisconsin, proposed moving Social Security and Medicare from the mandatory spending category to the discretionary one, so that Congress is compelled to actively monitor and manage the programs, rather than contentedly looking the other way as their mandatory nature digs them deeper into a hole. I actually agree with this. I think that's a good idea, because then that way you'd have to make adjustments as needed, rather than just, okay, go ahead, send them the money. All right, yep. Because that's just poor cash flow management, and that's why we're in this situation. Biden, okay, he pushed a theme hard down the campaign stretch. They're coming after your Social Security and Medicare in a big way. He warned in stump speeches with congressional candidates. This dude's just not doing his job, okay? He's obviously doing what, you know what, let me take that back. He doing what they telling him to do, whoever that is, because he ain't listening to us. That's for sure. Without action, however, time is coming for Social Security and Medicare in a big way. The trust fund is projected to run out around 2035. I'm projecting it's going to run out way before then. Okay. Absent congressional intervention, that will trigger a 20% cut for everyone receiving benefits. When the well runs dry, Medicare's trust fund is projected to vanish in just 6 years, with less clarity on how shrinking resources will be apportioned. As close as those two grim milestones are, two politicians of both parties whose principal aim is re-election, they're critically still more than one election cycle away. Given that, don't expect any fruitful action on Social Security or Medicare anytime soon. You can, however, expect that anyone who attempts to tailor the programs to economic reality will be accused of cruel intentions by disingenuous politicians who portray their own irresponsible inactions as the height of benevolence. It's really sad where the country is being led to, because insolvency is a serious issue. Okay? With insolvency comes legal actions, such as assets could be liquidated to pay off outstanding debts. And a lot of people are not going to be happy, especially if you have a mortgage and you're under water with that mortgage. The banks are going to come and take possession of your property. Or you could be forced to pay a lump sum of money within a certain amount of time. And I don't know how many people have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 saved in their account, because a lot of people are clearing out their savings from their banks. And it's not that they want to do that. It's just because of rising costs for food, energy, etc. I hope you felt this video was helpful. All you can do is really prepare yourself financially, spiritually, emotionally. Cut back on spending in any way possible. Look into tangible assets. Please do your own due diligence in researching tangible assets. Don't forget to visit our website, financiallysavvychick.com, and check out our blogs. Until next time, shalom.